Caitlin.
Hi.
For everyone who is watching, this is Caitlin Padgett, and I'm so excited to welcome her to the Shift series. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you, and you have been splitting your time to some degree, but right now, just to orient everyone, you are in Canada.
Yes, I'm on the west coast of Canada in Vancouver.
Awesome. So we are on the west coast of California right now, just kind of, just a little south of you. And then your other home is south of us, so you're down in Mexico.
Exactly. So if I were to keep going all the way to almost the very south of Mexico, getting close to Guatemala, it's a town called Puerto Escondido, and that's where I live most of the time.
Okay, so I want to get into your life story and your work story, but I'm just so curious. Will you tell us a little bit about your connection to Mexico and how that life transition's happening?
Yeah, well, I actually have had a lifelong connection to Mexico through both of my parents who separated when I was quite young, but I traveled a lot there with my mother when my sister and I were young, and my father moved there 25 years ago. So in reconnecting with my father, I fell in love with the town that he also fell in love with, which is Puerto Escondido. And so I was going there for vacations and sort of timeouts, and I can talk a little bit more about it later as well, but it became a very healthy place for me to be, a bit of a respite when things were kind of crazy in my life. And the more time I spent there, the more I wanted to live there, and started making the move about 4 years ago and spending the majority of my time there. And now I come back and forth a bit between Mexico and Canada, but my partner and I are building a house, and that's where our home base is.
It's so exciting. Yes, so we have a little bit of that, embarking on a new life, creating a home around you in common, building an eco. Tell us a little bit about what you're creating.
In Mexico?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we were really interested in building something that was very eco and sustainable, and so our house is adobe, and we live off the grid. It's off the grid right now, but soon we'll be getting solar and looking at how we can bring more solar to the community that we live in, because it's not very accessible right now. So we're definitely trying to get more of that consciousness happening, and also just as a resource and a tool for people who want it. And there's a lot of neighborhoods who are that are still off the grid, and electricity is really expensive, so it's kind of this really ideal situation if it can become more accessible, because there's a lot of people just making do right now.
Yeah.
And it would be a really great option. And it's sunny for most of the year.
Yeah, what a perfect place to be doing it. That's so wonderful. So you are embodying a lot of fabulous paradoxes here, Canada to Mexico and off the grid, and also an online business. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what led you into the work that you're doing in the world.
Wow. Well, yes, I feel incredibly fortunate, first and foremost, to be able to do this work. And it does sound pretty funny, because here we are using Skype technology, and that's the majority of my business is based online. And I'm really fortunate that just down the bumpy road, the dirt road from my house is actually a really cool shared office space that I can share in Mexico, which has the best internet around. So I'm really lucky to have friends who've also pioneered that. But basically, I would say also around the same time that I was looking at moving to Mexico was when I really started thinking about working online. And I had been working in drug policy and human rights work and HIV and health policy, and traveling a lot, working internationally, and actually was living in Asia. And was sort of climbing the ladder that I thought that I should climb in that field. And I started really passionate. I started as quite a young person, and I loved what I was doing, and I was an advocate for and with other young people. But as I got more into the policy side of things and was working as a consultant, I had some incredible opportunities, traveled, met some amazing people, but it wasn't fulfilling me, and I also was personally really not in a healthy place. And I actually moved from Cambodia to Mexico, and really deeply, for the first time, started working on my own healing. And then around the same time, as it happens, becoming aware of these really amazing women entrepreneurs doing really incredible stuff, mostly based online. Because that was always my dilemma, was like, I feel connected to this place, I want to live here, but how will I support myself? How will I continue to do work that's meaningful? So there's a lot more detail there, but basically things started showing up in my life and meeting people and taking courses online and really having this whole world of online-based entrepreneurship open up for me. And then my own wellness journey really led me into another path around my own health, and then studying holistic health coaching and deciding to make that a focus of my work. And that's what I do now.
And that's what you do now. So when I first found you, we found each other, I was blown away by a post you had written that was incredibly brave and beautifully crafted, that was shining the light on alcohol in our lives and women's lives and the relationship to wellness and health and well-being in general. Tell us a little bit about how that piece of your work evolved.
Sure. So it came from a very personal place, and alcohol is something that I've struggled with off and on for more than half my life now, and it's crazy when I say that, and I was just thinking, well, I think about it often, I guess, but, through my teens, off and on through my 20s, and actually into my early 30s, and it's interesting because even though I worked a lot around HIV and drugs and issues that are really stigmatized, I saw not the same thing, but I saw that alcohol within my peer group, like as my peer group changed and I was getting older, it seems weird to say that, but maturing and becoming an adult and a woman and then a professional woman and working and seeing it as something that a lot of women also struggled with, but yet didn't have a platform or a space to really talk about it. There's sort of the traditional models and groups and, programs that really work well for some people. And then there's this whole spectrum of experience that didn't really have a place to show up or talk about what we were going through. And so, if you're not necessarily somebody who identifies with like going to abstinence-based meetings and finding your community there was really not a lot out there for women to have a safe space without shame, without stigma, to talk about alcohol and how it might be affecting their lives. And I know that I certainly struggled with it for so many years because in a way it was like hard to talk about how it was affecting me negatively.
Right.
And there's so much out there in terms of the media and advertising around alcohol, and it's so pervasive and it's everywhere, it's at every event, there's free alcohol anytime you want it, almost in some fields, in some industries. And so, again, it was like part of my own journey of my own healing and kind of coming to terms with how I had used alcohol in my life and continue to, and wanting to change that, and also really just understand what it was all about, but then also wanting to have a space where women could feel comfortable to do the same and get supported and use tools that I was finding and using wellness tools that weren't quite in the traditional model of looking at addictions or substance use or alcoholism and healing and finding different ways to heal. So that has all woven into my coaching practice, where as a holistic health coach, I obviously draw from a lot of different tools and ideas around healing and health and wellness, and apply those to women who want to redefine their relationship with alcohol.
Oh, it's amazing work. Just to, connect some of the dots in my own journey, I come from an alcoholic family. I certainly come from generations where alcohol was kind of the social context. And I remember as a little girl the stories of my grandmother always knowing what every neighbor's drink was, and ensuring they had the bar set because so-and-so likes it with soda and so-and-so likes it straight up. And that pervasive alcohol context kind of trickling down through my family to where it was a part of the norm, not only of social gatherings, but I come from a creative family, so it was woven into the creative process. It was woven into so many different pieces. And so I also have had a interesting and complex dance with alcohol from my teens on. I think actually I was just telling someone the other day, I don't think I've ever said this publicly before, my sister and I got drunk for the very first time when we were little girls by accident with a beautiful crystal carafe of like peach schnapps somebody had made and tasted sweet like syrup and had no idea. So my alcohol journey actually started very, very young. I remember Frem de Menthe frappés if you had a sore throat, you know, it was like homemade NyQuil. So I so appreciate the space you're creating to have the discussion for those of us who maybe have seen extreme alcoholism around us, maybe have or haven't seen that in ourselves, but really looking for a tribe where what is the relationship if it doesn't necessarily resonate to, you know, especially I think the contrast, you know, no one's here doing an intervention. I'm getting up and I'm going to my job, but I know my relationship is funky, or I'm using alcohol in a certain way. Are those common themes with the women that you're talking with? I'm trying to understand a little bit of the context.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So it is a lot about, you know, really, how do I live my best life? And if I've been using alcohol as a tool, or it's been around me,
sure,
and it's sort of this given, you know, it's unquestioned. Like, you know, I still see it in, you know, it'll be interesting on my Facebook feed, on my, you know, my personal page, because I have so many different kinds of people, and,
sure,
and you know, something like, oh, I'm stressed out, you know, time for a drink kind of thing, and it's just like, it's so culturally accepted,
right.
And so, you know, when people start, the women that I work with, and, you know, my friends, my peer group, are really starting to try to bring awareness to it, it's around, you know, how do I wake up in the morning with myself and feeling present and not being hungover or tired or lethargic, and you know, how do I keep showing up through the day with my best self, and then at night, you know, how do I relax without that glass or two of wine? How do I celebrate, you know,
right,
you know, good things too, you know, like how do we have fun? How do we socialize? How do we be intimate? Intimacy is a huge one, you know, around our sexual experiences and dating, networking. I mean, it shows up in people's lives in a lot of different ways. And in one of the groups that I facilitate online, it's a private group, and you know, we have women who are across the spectrum. Some have chosen abstinence and are sticking with it, and that's what works for them. Some go through periods of abstinence. Okay, I'm doing it for a month. You know, I'm going to need some support. Great, awesome. Some are practicing moderation and trying to figure out how that works best for them, and asking for support around that. So, you know, how many times a week do I want to drink? I really do love my glass of wine when I can have it. So what situations feel good for that, and what situations do I really, you know, want to maybe look at what other options might be available to me? So it's not this mindless, like, automatic go for the bottle of wine, that it's doing other things that might nourish me, that might help me relax, that might give me this sort of sensual experience I'm looking for, whatever it might be. And so it's really neat in that way too, because it's incredibly supportive and interesting for me, because women are kind of, there's themes, but there's also has their own way, their own path that they're choosing for themselves.
Absolutely. It's so great to hear that you've been able to create a space that covers that full gamut from, you know, moderation or just shifting the relationship all the way to abstinence. What are some of, I'm thinking of my own story again here. So for me, I think the first opportunity that I had to fully separate myself and look at it from a different perspective is when I got pregnant for the first time. And so that was the first time that I became an observer to so many dynamics around me, in family dynamics, professional, working in management consulting at the time, and as you mentioned, how pervasive alcohol is in potentially a corporate culture. And that opportunity to maybe create a pause that you wouldn't have necessarily created for yourself was so big for me. How do you see women navigate that piece, that creating, I guess what I'm searching for is creating the space for yourself to actually gain that perspective? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, on one end of the spectrum, it seems like the rock bottom is the thing that does that. You know, it's the event that pierces through that causes us to really have to look at our lives. But somewhere on the more middle end of the spectrum, we have to seek that opportunity ourselves.
Yeah. I really appreciate that point because I've certainly read a lot where like that hitting bottom idea is sort of the like, well, you've got to do that. Like you've got to get to that point where you know there's just no worse place to be, and then you're really ready to change. And again, for some people that might be their experience, and I don't believe it's like that for everyone.
True.
And yes, there are definitely certain catalysts that happen, you know, that just one more time, but it's not, you know, it's not so extreme. Like sometimes I find that women, you know, it's just that like finally that final straw, you know, of like one more day waking up feeling like crap, you know, or just like, so nothing traumatic happened before. It wasn't, you know, anything out of the ordinary, but maybe it was even the fact that it had become the ordinary. And it's like, is this really how I want to be? And a lot of the women, you know, are in their late 20s or 30s. So it's also getting to a point where it's like, okay, that was fun, you know, that was good, it served its purpose, it was great, you know, but maybe there's a different way. And I think, you know, a lot of the people that I'm in touch with also because they're my peers in a way, are women who are interested in holistic health and are interested in wellness. And so it becomes incongruent, you know, because it's like, well, I'm doing these things, but yet I'm still using alcohol in this way. And so it's almost like this underlying kind of disease or dissatisfaction that might be the thing that would lead a woman to start reevaluating or redefining her relationship to alcohol more so than like a crazy traumatic experience. That does happen as well.
Sure.
You know, or it shows up in your relationship, you know, and you realize that it's just like, it's like the other entity in the relationship, you know, that it's affecting how you are with your partner. Or you realize that you're in a relationship to alcohol. I like describing it as a relationship because I know for myself, you know, it's a relationship that was tumultuous, but it definitely served me well over the years, you know. And you know, sometimes we talk a little bit about what it's like to break up with alcohol or to like, you know, let's see if we can, you know, date a little bit, but, you know, but not be so codependent. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. You touched on something that seems really complex and almost scary to dive into, but also really, really important, which is the link between intimacy and alcohol. And I imagine through my practice and through the women that I come into contact with through work and also through my coaching mastermind, sensuality and sexuality are a big one as we change through phases of our lives. And there are so many women who are wanting more desire later in their life, wanting more connection to their partner, and realizing that what shifted was the alcohol, and that somehow if you unravel the thread all the way back to its very beginnings, somewhere in those teenage years, there was a formative connection between sexuality, sensuality, intimacy, de-stressing, opening, that became intertwined with alcohol. And how do you coach people to unravel those two things? What are some of the steps a woman can take?
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking that this is like a topic for a whole web series.
Yeah, it is. It's deep and it's edgy.
It is. Like I would love to do, so putting it out there, I'd love to do like an online conference on, or some sort of, you know, online event around or interview series around intimacy and sensuality and the relationship between alcohol, or probably other things as well. But it's such a great topic. I think a big thing is really supporting women, each other, our peers, our sisters, our friends, our clients, whomever, to connect with sensuality in every aspect of their lives. Because I feel like sometimes, and especially when women are still using alcohol a lot to date, to feel comfortable, to make to feel like they can make a move, to get comfortable in bed, I feel like you're frozen. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I saw that.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes that can seem really scary. Like that's kind of how do I get there? How do I get so that I'm comfortable and I can relax and I can enjoy a date with someone, or I can feel like I can have a first sexual experience with someone? It might be a little bit overwhelming to think about completely eliminating alcohol from that equation. So what I really encourage people to do is, in their daily lives, look at sensuality, look at their relationship to their bodies, get comfortable, whether it be through music or like even self-massage or using oils and creams that feel good. And also it really ties into this idea of learning to relax and feel good and de-stress and feel, because so many people are like, oh, but that glass of wine just makes me feel so good, and it's like, yeah. And so how can we have that sensual sensory experience, without the alcohol? And so learning to do that first on our own is a huge big step. And then getting comfortable even hanging out with friends or other people or having other kinds of intimacy, socializing in other ways without alcohol. And so it's kind of like baby steps to get there in a way. Yeah. But it's kind of becoming comfortable with being with ourselves and exploring ourselves and our own interests and what kind of like turns us on in a way, not necessarily sexually, but just in life, what brings us pleasure. And then looking at the sexual intimacy piece, because sometimes it takes practice also to just be able to be comfortable saying, no thanks, I won't have that whatever drink, I'll have something else. Right. So it's like that has to happen first before you're going to be on that date, feeling comfortable, being like, actually I don't drink, and taking it from there.
It's so true. Creating those patterns for new responses to conditioned experiences, knowing, even having a go-to non-alcoholic drink, or having a pattern for yourself of knowing that you are comfortable with a half a glass or one glass. Just that individualized awareness is so key.
And really reconnecting with ourselves, because I think the thing that's so attractive about alcohol for so many people is its dissociative properties. Right. So it's just like such a lovely way to just not have to worry, to just like check out for a minute, like it's such a relief, Yeah. Because so many of us live such busy, committed, giving, lives, sure. And we have a lot of responsibilities, and sometimes it's just our anxieties, and sometimes it's so nice to just like be able to step outside of yourself in a way. Yeah. So really learning other ways to be able to release, but while still being connected with ourselves, I think is a really fascinating part of it. It's something that I know that I'm still working on, but you really do. You learn about yourself in a different way. Absolutely. And with that comes, I think, a confidence, but it feels unfamiliar at first.
Yeah, it's a practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I feel like we could go on and on. I can't wait for that, whatever it is, fabulous thing that you pull together that touches on the relationship between alcohol, sexuality, sensuality. I'm thinking anxiety and overwhelm. I'm thinking all of these other pieces that all fit into that constellation of how these things interplay. So keep us posted. We'll certainly be following you online. Tell us where we can find you. I know your website is CaitlinPadgett.com.
Yes. So my website is CaitlinPadgett.com. There's more information on my website about my specific approach and how I work with women around alcohol. And also, as I mentioned, I have the private Facebook community. It's a secret group at the request of some of the members to really provide that super safe space. So you can't search for it on Facebook. So if you're interested in joining that group, definitely contact me through the website and let me know that you're interested in that. There's a comments, contact form on my website, and let me know, and then we can be in touch, and I can get you connected to that group on Facebook. And I'd also love to hear from you if you're interested at all in working with me, because I actually have a special kind of supercharged September, which is also carrying a little bit into October, where some women really, I usually work with women in a longer program, but as summer was happening, I started hearing from people in my groups and, sort of feeling this energy around like, okay, summer was fun, now it's time to refocus, and not necessarily wanting to or needing to commit to a longer coaching program, but really wanting an intensive, focused sessions or series of sessions. So it's a 4-session package that I have, Supercharged September. And it really just helps sort of press that reset button, and we can meet either weekly or every 2 weeks over the course, weekly for a month or every 2 weeks for 2 months. So if you're interested, contact me through the website as well.
That is wonderful. So so if you're finding this now, do go ahead and hop on that list and check in with Caitlin. If you're finding this after Supercharged September, make sure you contact her anyway and get on the wait list for what she has coming up next. Caitlin, you're an amazing writer. You are incredibly inspiring, and I'm so grateful that you joined us here today.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I always like to ask if there were just one thing that a person could do from wherever they are, wherever on that continuum, whatever resources they might have at their disposal, one thing that they could do to help them align to this awakening or this shift, what would you recommend that be?
That's such a good question. And what I really feel, especially around this issue, if you're listening to this and any of this resonated with you around alcohol, or it might even be other substances that you're using, and food is also a big one. Just about
sugar. I'm thinking sugar. Yeah.
Sugar. Doing a month without sugar again. Like I like to do that, and it's fascinating. What comes up even just around sugar. So yes. I think the biggest thing is if this resonated with you and you think, yeah, you know what, maybe I do want to make a shift around this stuff, or really just even look at what it's about. What I see a lot is just being able to verbalize it. And I think especially when it comes to alcohol, even taking that step, because sometimes we feel like there's something wrong with us, or if we start talking about it, that it means we have a problem.
Right.
And or that it's it's bad, and trying to shed that, it's not bad necessarily, it's not a problem, it just is what it is, and it can be different.
Right.
And so reaching out, whether it be online, whether it be with a trusted friend, whether it be contacting me and starting that conversation, to getting kind of outside of whatever stories we're telling ourselves, and just being open with curiosity to looking at it and being in conversation with it. But sometimes what really helps is to do that through speaking with somebody else. And I really do see that. And I love connecting with women around this, and I offer discovery sessions that are free of charge. And some of the women who do them, sign up with my program, some don't. And some write to me and say, that one session just changed so much. Thank you so much. And for me, that feels so good, and sometimes I'll hear from people months later, and it really is about that feeling safe to start talking about it, and in a way that, it's not shameful, it's not bad, it doesn't have to be a secret, it can be okay, and then to look at what steps to start taking from that. Everybody's really individual, so it's hard for me to say exactly what one step someone should take. But I think if I looked at something consistently that's really worked for all of the women that I've come in touch with, it really is taking that first step and getting outside of the stuff we have in here about it and sharing. Yeah.
That's so huge, and I'm so thankful you shared the story about even free discovery session making a difference, because it really is a testament to the light that you shine and to the activating quality of the work that you're doing and the spark that you're creating from within. So huge gratitude for the walk that you are walking. And
Thank you.
yeah, everyone, I encourage you, take a look at Caitlin's article below and go to her website and get on her list. And if that Facebook group resonates for you, reach out as well. And I hope to be continuing this discussion. I think it's so important.
Yeah, me too. And I'm so grateful that this was something that you thought was important to share with people as well. So I'm really happy that we had a chance to connect today.
Me too. Thanks so much for your time. Share pictures of the place in Mexico. We can't wait to see.
Oh, I will, for sure. Yeah, come visit.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Treats coming soon. No?
Perfect.